The curious watchers far away from Earth, deep in the cold space, there was a huge alien station called the Watcher's Eye. Many alien races lived there. They watched different planets and decided which ones to conquer. For many years, they looked at Earth. It was a small blue planet full of life, but it looked weak. Humans fought among themselves. Their technology was old compared to alien empires. Their spaceships were slow and basic. Their weapons could not even touch the stars. The Zarketh Empire, a powerful alien race, became very interested in Earth. Their leader, High Commander Vekthar, stood before the Council of Elders and said, "Earth is defenseless. It will be easy to take. Their armies are divided. Their skies are open. Their planet is rich. Why has no one taken it?" The elders looked at each other. There was a long silence. Finally, the oldest elder, Master Corval, spoke. "You are not the first to see Earth's weakness. Many have seen it before. Many have tried. None have returned." Vekthar frowned. "Maybe they were weak. We are not." The elder nodded slowly. "Maybe. But before you attack, you must send a team. Find out the truth. Report back. Only then will the council allow an invasion." Vekthar agreed. He chose 5 of his best soldiers. They were strong, smart, and fearless. Their ship, a dark and silent cruiser named Shadow Fang, left the Watcher's Eye and sped toward Earth. As they entered Earth's orbit, strange things began to happen. Their communication systems started to break. Their scanners showed strange readings. Invisible waves of energy pushed against their ship. It was not natural. It was not human technology either. Captain Selrix, the team leader, growled, "Something is wrong. Earth should not have this kind of power." But they continued. They landed in a dense forest under the cover of darkness. It was silent. Too silent. The trees stood like tall soldiers. The air was thick and heavy. The team stepped out carefully. Their scanners searched for signs of humans or military bases. Nothing appeared. Only broken remains of old human machines. Rusted tanks, fallen, satellites, and burnt research labs. "This place looks abandoned," said Tarka, the youngest of the team. "But our sensors show millions of humans alive across the planet," Selrix replied. "Why is this area dead?" Suddenly the team's lights flickered. Their weapons buzzed and hissed, as if something invisible touched them. Selrix ordered, "Stay sharp. We are not alone." The team moved deeper into the forest. Every step felt heavier. Every sound, a snapping twig, a whisper of wind, made their hearts beat faster. They were trained soldiers, but an unseen fear started to grow inside them. Without warning, a shadow moved between the trees. A figure, human-looking, walked slowly toward them. He wore simple clothes, like a farmer. He smiled. Not a warm smile, but a cold, knowing smile. Selrix raised his weapon. "Identify yourself." The man did not stop. He spoke in a calm voice. "You should not be here." Selrix's finger tightened on the trigger. "We are not here to talk. Stand down." Still, smiling, the man said, "You are not the first. You will not be the last. But none who came before you ever left." The team looked at each other. This was not normal. No human should be this calm when facing alien soldiers. Tarka whispered, "Something is wrong. My gun feels heavy." Selrix noticed too. His gun buzzed strangely. It felt like it was melting in his hands. He cursed and dropped it. The ground under their feet started to hum. The man turned and walked into the forest, leaving no footprints behind. Selrix shouted, "After him!" But when they ran forward, the man was gone, disappeared like smoke. Only silence remained. A deep, heavy silence that pressed against their minds. Captain Selrix spoke into his communicator. "Base, this is the scouting team. We have a situation, possible unknown force. Request backup." There was no answer. Only static. Above them, the stars seemed to blink out, one by one, as if the sky itself was closing its eyes. Selrix realized something terrifying. They had landed on a planet that wanted them blind, deaf, and helpless, and whatever protected Earth was already awake. The first encounter. The forest grew darker as the alien team moved forward. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their twisted branches blocking the little light that was left. The silence around them was not peaceful. It felt alive, like something unseen was breathing along with them. Captain Selrix led the way, his steps careful. His gun, half melted, hung useless by his side. Every scanner and every communicator they had was dead. They were truly alone now, cut off from their ship, cut off from the stars. Tarka, the youngest soldier, stayed close behind. His sharp eyes scanned every shadow. "Sir," he whispered, "maybe we should go back." Selrix didn't answer. He knew it was too late to turn back. Suddenly, a soft light flickered ahead, golden and warm. It seemed out of place in the cold, dark forest. Without thinking, the team moved toward it, drawn like moths to a flame. In the middle of a clearing stood a small wooden house. It looked simple, almost human. Smoke rising from a chimney, a rocking chair moving slowly on the porch. But there were no sounds, no crickets, no wind, no heartbeat of nature. Only the rocking chair creaked back and forth on its own. Selrix gave a signal to spread out. They moved in silence, weapons raised, senses sharp. As they approached, the front door of the house opened with a soft creak. A woman stepped out. She was human, or at least she looked human. She wore an old-style dress, her hair braided neatly down her back. She smiled gently, but her eyes were too deep, too knowing, too still. "Welcome, travelers," she said in a voice that was calm and cold at the same time. "We have been waiting for you." The team froze. They had prepared for human soldiers, tanks, maybe even primitive traps, but not this. Not a smiling woman in the middle of nowhere, speaking their language perfectly. Selrix stepped forward carefully. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head slightly. "Names have no meaning here, but you may call me the Watcher." Tarka shifted nervously. He whispered to Selrix, "Sir, she knows about us. This is a trap." Selrix nodded slowly. "We mean no harm," he said to the Watcher. "We are only here to observe." The Watcher laughed, a sound that sent cold shivers down their spines. "You are not the first to say that, but you will be the last." Before Selrix could react, the ground beneath them began to pulse. Strange symbols, glowing blue, appeared on the earth, forming a circle around them. The air turned heavy, thick like water. One of the soldiers, Bren, panicked. He raised his backup blaster and fired at the Watcher. The beam struck her, but she did not move. The blast passed through her like smoke. She was not really there. A soft whisper filled the air. "Violence has no power here." Suddenly, shapes began to emerge from the forest, tall, shadowy beings with long arms and glowing eyes. They floated above the ground, silent and terrifying. The aliens raised their weapons, but it was useless. Their guns turned to dust in their hands. Their armor cracked like old wood. Selrix shouted, "Fall back! Retreat to the ship!" But when they turned, the forest behind them had changed. The path they had come through was gone, replaced by endless walls of black trees. "Trapped," Tarka screamed as one of the shadow beings touched him. In an instant he disappeared. Not dead, not broken, simply gone like he had never existed. Selrix grabbed his last remaining soldiers and ran toward the wooden house. It was the only thing that stayed still in this twisting nightmare. The Watcher stood on the porch, smiling calmly as if watching children play. "You must understand," she said gently. "Earth is not defenseless. It never has been. It is simply protected." Selrix, breathing hard, stared at her. "Protected by what?" She smiled wider. "By those older than the stars. By those who decided that Earth would grow untouched." The shadow being circled them slowly, patiently. Selrix realized the terrible truth. They had walked into a trap far older and far more powerful than anything they had ever known. And Earth was only pretending to be weak, to hide the monsters that lived under its skin. The warning. The sky above the forest turned darker, almost black, as if the stars themselves had been swallowed. Captain Selrix and his 2 remaining soldiers stumbled forward, trying to escape the circle of shadows that moved around them like silent hunters. Their weapons were gone. Their technology was useless. Fear wrapped around their hearts like cold chains. The wooden house stood ahead, still glowing with soft light. The watcher waited on the porch, her face calm, her hands folded neatly. Selrix, breathing hard, shouted, "What do you want from us?" The watcher tilted her head slightly as if confused by the question. "I want nothing," she said softly. "It is you who came here. It is you who disturbed the balance." The ground under Selrix's feet pulsed again. Symbols he could not understand, burned into the earth, and the air around them buzzed with invisible power. The 2 soldiers, Bren and Varlock, looked at Selrix with panic in their eyes. "We can't stay here," Bren whispered. "These things, they'll kill us." Selrix nodded. "We need answers. Fast." He turned back to the watcher. "What is protecting this planet? What are those creatures?" The watcher smiled sadly. "They are not creatures. They are not machines. They are the memories of Earth's ancient protectors. They were created before your kind even learned to walk." She stepped down from the porch, her bare feet leaving no marks on the dirt. The shadows parted for her, respectful, almost afraid. The watcher came closer until she stood only a few steps away from Selrix. "You must listen carefully," she said in a low voice. "Earth is not allowed to fall. It has been marked by the first ones, the true builders of the stars. They gave Earth a gift, the silent shield, a living defense. It does not fire missiles. It does not raise armies. It simply removes threats." Selrix's mouth felt dry. "Removes?" The watcher nodded. "Those who come with violence are erased, not killed, forgotten, their existence undone, their memories scattered like dust in the void." Varlock shook his head in disbelief. "This is impossible. Nothing can do that." The watcher turned her deep, eyes on him. "Believe what you will, but if you stay much longer, you will vanish too." Selrix tried to think fast. He had to get his team back. He had to warn the Zarketh Empire. He asked, "If we leave now, will you let us go?" The watcher stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "But only if you carry the warning to others. Only if you promise never to return." Selrix did not hesitate. Agreed. But even as he spoke, he noticed Bren standing frozen, staring into the trees. "Bren?" Selrix called out. Bren didn't move. His body was stiff, his face pale. Slowly, as if pulled by invisible strings, Bren walked toward the shadows. "No!" Selrix shouted. He tried to grab him, but the air between them turned solid like glass. His hand bounced back. Bren entered the darkness. For a brief moment he screamed, not in pain, but in pure terror. Then he was gone. As if he had never existed. Only Selrix and Varlock remained. The watcher's voice was calm. "One warning, one messenger. That is the rule." Selrix's hands trembled with anger and fear, but he knew they had no choice. He turned to Varlock. "Run! Now!" They sprinted, back through the forest. This time the trees did not move to block them. The path opened before them like a living river. In the sky above, strange lights danced, massive shapes moving behind the clouds, too large to understand, too terrible to name. The watcher watched them go, her expression unreadable. As they disappeared into the distance, she whispered to the silent trees, "Let them remember. Let them fear." Far above, their ship, Shadowfang, was barely holding together. Systems were still damaged by the strange forces that touched them. Selrix and Varlock reached it breathless, battered, and broken. Inside the ship, The navigation system sparked and flashed warnings. Selric sat in the command chair, his voice hoarse. "Get us out of here, full power." The engines roared. The ship rose into the black sky, leaving behind the haunted forest, the Watcher, and the nightmare they would never forget. But as they left, Selric knew one thing deep in his bones. Earth was never defenseless. Earth was a trap built by the universe itself, and anyone foolish enough to attack it would not just die. They would be erased. The Hidden War. The ship Shadowfang raced through the black sky, engines burning at maximum speed. Captain Selric sat in the command chair, staring ahead with hollow eyes. Varlock worked quickly on the damaged controls, trying to keep the ship steady. Behind them, Earth grew smaller, but the fear it left in their hearts grew larger. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Selric broke the silence. "What did we walk into?" Varlock shook his head. "Not a planet, a battlefield, an invisible war." Selric leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. Images flashed in his mind. The Watcher's cold smile, the shadow beings, Bren vanishing into nothingness. He opened a secret data chip hidden in his wrist console. It contained old records from the Watcher's Eye, files that many thought were myths, ancient missions, old missing fleets, unexplained disappearances. Near Earth, Selric had laughed at those stories before. Now he wasn't laughing. As the ship moved farther from Earth, strange distortions began appearing on the screens, twisted shapes moving faster than light, flashing between stars. "We're not safe yet," Varlock said, voice tight with fear. Selric nodded. "They're following us." He knew now. Earth's guardians were not tied to the ground. They could chase threats across space if needed. And it had happened before. Long ago, powerful empires had tried to invade Earth. Great fleets had darkened the sky. Entire legions had landed. None had returned. But it was never a fair battle. The moment they attacked, Earth itself responded. Not with armies or weapons, but with something worse. The Silent Shield. The Silent Shield was not a wall. It was a living force, built by beings who had mastered creation and destruction. When enemies came, it erased them. Their ships, their bodies, their very names, wiped clean from history. The record spoke of a hidden war, a secret fight, across centuries. Earth was a trap laid by ancient architects baited with a simple planet, waiting for arrogant invaders to step into the jaws of the unseen. Selric now understood why the Council had hesitated, why the Elders spoke in whispers about Earth. It was not weakness that kept Earth untouched. It was terror. Varlock cursed as alarms blared. "Multiple distortions. They're surrounding us." On the ship's screens, black, formless shapes blinked in and out of existence. No weapons locked onto them, no shields could block them. Selric made a hard choice. "We can't lead them back to our homeworld. Cut the hyperspace jump. Drop into dead space." Varlock stared at him. "If we drop, we might be stuck forever," Selric growled. "Better lost than erased." With a deep shudder, Shadowfang tore itself out of hyperspace and dropped into a cold, empty part of the galaxy, a place where no sun shined and no planets lived. The ship floated in silence. The black shapes stopped chasing them, hovering at the edge of their vision, like wolves watching. From the woods, Selric stood up slowly. He activated the emergency beacon, not to call for rescue, but to send one final message across the stars. His voice was grim. "This is Captain Selric of the Zarketh Empire. To all who hear this, stay away from Earth. It is not defenseless. It is not weak. It is a killing ground built by powers beyond your understanding. Those who attack it will be forgotten." He ended the transmission and disabled the beacon. Selric turned to Varlock. "Now we wait." The two soldiers sat together in the cold silence of dead space, knowing they might never be found, knowing they were lucky to even be alive, and far behind them, Earth spun peacefully under its blue skies, a simple world hiding terrible secrets. Above it, unseen by human eyes, ancient watchers drifted between dimensions, guarding their precious prize. The hidden war was not over. It had simply shifted, waiting for the next fool to make the same deadly mistake. The unseen guardians far behind the drifting ship Shadowfang, Earth spun quietly in space, beautiful and calm. To any normal eye, it looked like a simple planet, full of life, oceans, forests, and cities. But to those who knew the truth, Earth was something else. It was a nest guarded by forces so old, so strong, that even the bravest empires dared not come close. Deep under the surface of the oceans, inside the tallest mountains, and hidden in the empty skies, the unseen guardians slept. But they were never truly at rest. They were the silent shield. They were the reason Earth had survived when other worlds had burned. The Watcher stood once again on the porch of the wooden house in the strange forest. She stared at the empty night, her eyes seeing far beyond what any human could see. Beside her, a figure appeared, another guardian, cloaked in shadows. They ran, the figure said softly. As they all do. The Watcher nodded. But others will come. They always do. They spoke without anger, without hate, only with patience. The patience of beings who had seen stars born and die, who had watched empires rise and fall like grains of dust. Underneath the ground, deep energy pulses traveled through hidden tunnels. In the high clouds, shapes twisted and danced invisible to human eyes. Across the oceans, massive forms slumbered, waiting for the call. Each guardian was different. Some looked like beasts made of fire and stone, some like glowing spirits. Some had no shape at all, only whispers carried by the wind. But they all shared one purpose: protect Earth, erase the threat, maintain the balance. Humans lived their short lives completely unaware. They built cities, fought wars, explored their skies, never knowing that every time they launched a missile, fired a gun, or exploded a bomb, unseen eyes watched, judging, deciding Earth had been given time to grow, to learn, to reach the stars when they were ready. But until that day came, the Guardians would allow no outside hand to destroy it. In the darkness of dead space, inside the damaged Shadowfang, Captain Selric stared at a small screen. A single message blinked, the one he had sent, a warning. He knew that many would ignore it. Some would think it was fear, some would think it was a trick, and some would come anyway. He closed his eyes, tired and broken. They won't listen, he whispered. Varlock sat beside him, silent. Outside the ship, far in the distance, Selrix could see shapes moving, like shadows swimming through the stars. They hadn't fully escaped. The Guardians were still there, watching, waiting. They were not cruel, they did not hate, but they would act the moment Earth was threatened again. Selrix finally understood something that had haunted the stars for centuries. The silent shield was not just Earth's protector, it was its final judge. And to challenge Earth was to challenge the will of something far older than any empire. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a small child played in a field, laughing under the bright sun. A farmer harvested his crops. A young woman read a book by a river, all peaceful, all unaware. Above them, unseen, a giant guardian drifted through the clouds, its form blending perfectly with the sky. It passed over the cities, over the forests, over the oceans, always watching, always ready. No human would ever see it. No human would ever know. And that was the way it had to be. Earth was not alone. It was never alone. It was guarded by forces that did not need thanks. Only silence. Only obedience to an ancient promise. Let this world grow. Let it live. Let it reach the stars when it is ready. Until then, protect it, no matter the cost. Tsaither. Hidden war continued, not with armies and battles, but with shadows and whispers. The greatest defense was the one no enemy could see, until it was too late. The great escape inside. The damaged ship Shadow Fang. Alarm screamed through the narrow halls. The cold blue lights flickered weakly, and the walls groaned under invisible pressure. Captain Selrix gripped the command chair tightly. Sweat rolled down his forehead as he stared at the screens. The black shapes were back, closer now, circling the ship like vultures waiting for a dying beast. "We can't outrun them!" Varlock shouted from the controls. His fingers flew across broken keys trying to patch the engines. "We have to!" Selrix barked back. His voice was rough, but his mind was clear. If they stayed, they would vanish, just like Bren had. Just like the others before them. The ship shook violently. Panels burst from the walls. Sparks rained down like deadly stars. Outside, the Guardians moved, faster than anything Selrix had ever seen. No weapons targeted them. No defenses touched them. They were not enemies that could be fought. They were a force of nature. Selrix made a decision. "Prepare emergency hyperspace jump," he ordered. "Anywhere. Even if we crash into a sun, it's better than staying here." Varlock hesitated only a second. Then he nodded grimly and set the coordinates, random and wild. The ship trembled as the engines powered up. The black shapes tightened their circle, the walls of reality itself bending around them. Selrix counted under his breath. 3, 2. A shadow smashed against the ship's side. The hull cracked open. Cold void rushed in, tearing through the hallways like a screaming ghost. "Now," Selrix roared. With a final lurch, the Shadow Fang disappeared into hyperspace, slipping out of the Guardian's deadly grip by a fraction of a second. For endless moments, the ship spun through the chaos of hyperspace, a broken bird tumbling through a storm. Inside, Selrix and Varlock were thrown from their seats. Alarms died. Lights faded. Gravity failed. They floated in silence, the ship bleeding energy from 1,000 wounds. Selrix grabbed a loose strap and pulled himself toward the control panel. His fingers found the emergency shutdown switch. With a deep rumble, the ship dropped out of hyperspace, straight into a dead sector of space. No stars, no planets, only blackness. The Shadow Fang drifted silently, broken, but alive. Varlock coughed and pushed himself upright. His face was pale, his eyes wide with shock. "Did we make it?" he whispered. Selrix looked at the scanners. Nothing followed them. For now. He leaned back against the wall, exhaustion crushing him. "We escaped," he said hoarsely, "but barely." Varlock laughed bitterly. "From what? From gods?" Selrix didn't answer. He thought of the Watcher's words, of the silent shield, of the terrible truth. Earth was protected not by machines, but by something much worse. Something that saw invaders not as enemies, but as infections to be erased, and they had survived, not because they were strong, but because the Guardians allowed them to flee. As messengers, as warnings. Selrix stared into the empty void, outside the cracked window. His voice was almost a whisper. "We have to warn them all, tell them the truth. Stay away from Earth, or be forgotten." Far away, back on Earth, the Guardians returned to their silent watch. The skies above the cities remained clear. The oceans slept peacefully, and deep underground, in places no human had ever seen. Ancient powers smiled, cold and patient. They knew others would come. Curiosity, greed, ambition. But it didn't matter. The Guardians were eternal. And the next invaders would meet the same fate. Earth's secret war never truly ended. It simply waited for the next great escape that would never happen. The silent threat in the cold darkness of space, the ship Shadow Fang floated like a broken ghost. Inside, Captain Selrix and Varlock sat in silence, their faces pale, their minds heavy with fear and knowledge. Their emergency message traveled slowly through the endless void, a simple warning, desperate and clear. Stay away. From Earth. Selrix knew deep inside that many would not listen. Empires were proud. Commanders were arrogant. They would see Earth's beauty, its resources, its weakness, and they would make the same mistake. He stared out at the empty space and whispered, "They think Earth is easy prey. They don't understand. It is the hunters who become the hunted." Far away, back on the Watcher's Eye on the great alien space station, leaders from many worlds received Selrix's transmission. They listened carefully. Some believed. Most laughed. "Fairy tales," sneered a warlord from the Scarth Dominion. "Ghost stories," chuckled an admiral from the Drex Alliance. "Earth will fall," said many. "It is only a matter of time." Plans were made. Fleets were prepared. The skies of Earth would once again see the shadow of invaders. But in their pride, they forgot one thing. The silent shield had no mercy. It had no weakness. It had no need to fight in the open. Beneath Earth's blue skies, humans lived their lives, working, dreaming, laughing, unaware of the terrible forces swirling above them. They did not know that battles were fought on the edge of their world. They did not hear the silent screams of fleets vanishing without a trace. They did not see when entire armies were erased from time itself. To them, Earth was just home. To the Guardians, it was sacred ground, defended with the full power of ancient oaths. The first invasion fleet arrived quietly, slipping past Earth's outer orbit. They had new weapons, stronger ships. They thought they were smarter. For a brief moment, they believed victory was near. Then the stars above them blinked out. The black shapes returned, faster, darker, angrier. The invaders fired all their weapons. Missiles, plasma, beams, particle disruptors, everything. None of it mattered. One by one, their ships vanished. No explosions, no wreckage, only silence. In less than 5 minutes, an entire fleet ceased to exist. Not just destroyed, but erased from memory. As if they had never been born, their names were forgotten. Their worlds wept for heroes they could not even remember. The silent shield worked without sound, without light, without mercy. Captain Selrix, drifting alone in his dying ship, felt a strange sadness as he received the final echoes of the battle. He knew that Earth would remain safe, for now. But he also knew something deeper, something more terrifying. Earth was not just protected, it was chosen. It was claimed. By forces too old to name. By powers that no empire could match. It was not Earth's armies that made it strong. It was the silent threat that watched from the darkness. Ancient, patient, unstoppable. Selrix closed his eyes and whispered the last truth he had learned. Earth is not defenseless. It is death wearing the mask of life. And anyone foolish enough to forget that would never be remembered again.